morning in my new house was supposed to be peaceful. I was standing in my living room surrounded by cardboard boxes when a violent banging hit my front door so hard it shook the entire frame like someone was trying to break through before I could even react. A sharp, high-pitched voice screamed from outside, "Open the door right now. You cannot live here." I froze in place with a coffee mug still in my hand and my heart suddenly racing because I had barely been in this house for 12 hours and nobody in this town even knew my name yet. The banging continued even louder than before, and I could hear the anger vibrating through every strike against the wood. I set down my mug slowly and walked toward the door feeling a strange mix of confusion and rising irritation because whoever was on the other side clearly had no sense of boundaries or basic human decency. When I finally opened the door, a woman stood there with her arms crossed tightly over her chest and oversized designer sunglasses covering half her face even though we were standing in the shade of my front porch. She held a clipboard pressed against her body like it was some kind of weapon, and she looked at me like I was an intruder in my own home. She did not introduce herself. She did not say hello or good morning or anything remotely polite. She just pointed one long manicured finger at my house like it was a crime scene that needed to be contained immediately. "This property is under HOA rules, and you are trespassing on regulated land. Pack your belongings and leave before I am forced to write you up, and have you removed by security." I stared at her for a moment trying to process what she just said because nothing about it made any sense. My name is Elena, and I had spent the last 3 years saving every paycheck and working double shifts just to afford this small piece of land outside the city limits. I chose this location specifically because it was not part of any homeowners association. I did my research. I read every document. I consulted with lawyers and county officials. I knew exactly what I was buying and I knew exactly what rules applied to this property, none of which included this woman or her ridiculous clipboard. I kept my voice calm even though everything inside me wanted to match her energy. "Ma'am," I said slowly and clearly, "this property is located outside the HOA boundary. That is the reason I purchased it. I made sure of that before I signed a single paper." She did not even flinch. Instead, she stepped closer to me, almost pushing her way past the threshold of my front door like she owned the place. "Do not lie to me," she snapped. "Everything on this street falls under my authority. I am the president of the Homeowners Association and I decide who is allowed to live here and who is not. You were never approved. You never submitted the proper applications. You never attended a board meeting. And frankly, you do not look like the kind of person we want in this community." Her words hit me like ice water, but I refused to show it. I had dealt with difficult people before. I had survived worse situations than some entitled woman with a clipboard trying to intimidate me on my own front porch. But something about the way she spoke told me this was not just about neighborhood rules. This was about power. This was about control. And she was used to people backing down the moment she raised her voice. I could see neighbors peeking through their curtains across the street. A few had stepped onto their porches pretending to water plants or check their mailboxes, but really they were watching. Some of them even had their phones out recording the entire scene. Like this was not the first time this woman had caused a public spectacle. Like this was entertainment for them. And honestly, that made everything worse because it meant she had done this before, probably many times, and nobody had stopped her. She lifted her clipboard and pulled out a bright red sheet of paper covered in bold text and official-looking stamps. She slapped it against my door frame with a loud crack and held it there so I could see every fake word printed on it. "This is your final warning," she said with a smug smile curling at the corners of her lips. "You have until sunset to vacate this property. If you refuse, I will personally contact security and have you forcibly removed. Do not test me, I do not lose." I stared at the paper for a long moment. It looked official. Too official. There were stamps and seals and something that looked like an eviction code at the bottom. There was even a signature line with a name I did not recognize scrawled across it in thick black ink. But the more I read, the more obvious it became that the entire document was fake. The formatting was wrong. The legal language was nonsensical. And the supposed county seal looked like something pulled from a free clip art website. I looked back at her and she was still smirking like she had already won. Like she had done this 100 times before and every single person had folded under the pressure. That was when something inside me shifted. A calm clarity washed over me and I realized exactly what kind of person I was dealing with. She thought I was some easy target. Some quiet woman who would panic and pack her bags and disappear without a fight. She had no idea who she was dealing with, and she definitely had no idea about the one thing that made this entire situation dangerous for her. Not for me, but I did not say it yet. I reached up and slowly removed the fake notice from my door frame. I folded it carefully, making sure she watched every deliberate movement. Then I looked her dead in the eyes and said the line that made her confident expression crack for the first time. Before you try to remove me from this property, you should probably find out who actually owns this land. Her smile faltered. She stepped back just slightly, and for the first time since she arrived, she looked nervous, because she had no idea what truth she was about to uncover. And that truth was going to destroy everything she thought she controlled. Before we go any further, if you believe that people like this woman should face consequences for their actions, and you enjoy stories about justice being served, then make sure to subscribe to this channel, because we share stories like this every single day. Stories that will satisfy your soul and remind you that karma is real. Now let me tell you exactly what happened next. My name is Elena Castillo, and I spent 15 years working for the federal government in a role that very few people even know exists. I was part of a specialized division that handled land protection cases and property rights disputes across multiple states. My job was to investigate, verify, and approve the legal status of land that fell under special federal protection clauses. These were properties that could not be touched by local governments, private organizations, or anyone else without direct federal authorization. I knew more about land ownership law than most attorneys. I had written policies that judges referenced in courtrooms, and I had approved the very protection clause that covered the property I now called home. I bought this land 3 years ago through a completely legal and transparent process. I worked with county officials, federal reviewers, and independent surveyors to ensure that every document was in order. I knew exactly what I was getting. A small, quiet piece of land outside the reach of any homeowners association, a place where I could finally live in peace after years of stressful work and constant travel, a place that was mine and mine alone. But Patricia Langford did not know any of this. She only saw what she wanted to see. A woman living alone in a modest house on a street she believed belonged to her, and she made the fatal mistake of assuming I would be easy to control. When I told her to find out who actually owned this land, her entire demeanor changed. Her jaw tightened and her eyes narrowed behind those ridiculous sunglasses. She tried to recover by forcing her voice back into that aggressive tone she had used before, but it came out shakier than she intended. "I do not care who you think you are," she snapped. "If I say you are violating HOA rules, then you are violating them. I am the authority here, not you, not some piece of paper." I did not respond. I simply turned and walked past her, heading toward my truck parked in the driveway. She followed me immediately, her heels clicking against the pavement with angry, rapid steps. "Do not walk away from me," she shouted. "I am not finished speaking to you. This conversation is not over until I say it is over." But I kept walking. I let her words bounce off my back like rain on a window. She thought her volume gave her power. She thought if she screamed loud enough I would eventually break. But I had faced far worse than a suburban bully with a fake clipboard. When I reached my truck, I opened the tailgate and reached inside for a thick black folder I had kept secured in a locked case. This folder contained everything: original land deeds, federal survey reports, county approval letters, and most importantly, a federal protection clause with my name printed clearly at the bottom as the approving officer. Patricia followed so close behind me that I could feel her breath on my shoulder. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "What is in that folder?" I turned around slowly, holding the folder against my chest. "This," I said calmly, "is every legal document proving that I own this land free and clear, and that your HOA has absolutely no jurisdiction here." Her eyes widened for just a moment before she forced herself to scoff dismissively. "That does not prove anything," she said, though her voice cracked slightly. "Anyone can print fake documents." I smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "That is interesting," I replied, "because you seem to be an expert in fake documents, considering the one you just tried to slap on my door." Her face flushed red. "That notice was completely legitimate," she insisted. "I have the authority to issue warnings to anyone who violates community standards." I tilted my head slightly. "Do you also have the authority to forge county seals? Because the one on your paper does not match any official seal registered with the state." She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. She looked around quickly as if searching for someone to back her up, but the neighbors were still just watching, recording, whispering. None of them stepped forward to help her. I continued. "And since we are discussing authority, let me explain something to you. This property falls outside the legally defined boundaries of your homeowners association. That means your rules do not apply here. Your board has no power here. And you, Patricia, have no right to be standing on my property issuing threats." She sputtered. "How do you know my name? I never told you my name." I held up my phone and showed her the screen. "You are listed on the county website as the HOA president for Maple Ridge Estates. You have been the subject of 7 formal complaints in the last 2 years alone. Harassment, intimidation, filing false reports. The county already has a file on you, Patricia." And after today that file is going to get a lot thicker. Her entire body tensed, and for a moment I thought she might actually try to grab the phone from my hand, but then she saw something that stopped her cold, the small camera mounted on the tailgate of my truck. Its red light blinked steadily, recording every word, every gesture, every expression. Her face went pale. "Turn that off," she demanded. "You cannot record me without my consent." I almost laughed. "We are standing on my private property," I said. "I can record anything I want. And you have been screaming loud enough for the entire street to hear, so any expectation of privacy went out the window about 10 minutes ago." She took a step back, her confidence finally cracking in a visible way. "This is not over," she said, but her voice had lost all its strength. "I will be filing a formal complaint. I will have the board review your case. You will regret making an enemy of me." I nodded slowly. "File whatever you want," I said, "but I should warn you. The county already knows about your habit of filing false complaints, and they are not going to be as patient with you as your neighbors have been." She glared at me with pure hatred in her eyes, but she did not say another word. She turned and started walking back toward the street, her heels clicking against the pavement in a rapid, uneven rhythm. I watched her go, feeling a sense of calm satisfaction settle over me. But the encounter was far from over, because just as Patricia reached the edge of my driveway, a black SUV turned onto the street and rolled slowly toward us. Its windows were tinted so dark I could not see who was inside. Patricia froze. Her entire body went rigid, and her face, which had already been pale, turned almost grey. She whispered something under her breath so quietly I almost did not catch it. "No, not him, not today." And that was when I realized something important. Patricia was not just afraid of losing an argument. She was terrified of whoever was in that vehicle. The SUV stopped in the middle of the street, and the engine idled low like a predator waiting to strike. For a long moment nothing happened. Patricia stood frozen on my driveway, her clipboard hanging loosely at her side. The neighbors who had been watching from their porches went silent. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. Then the driver door opened slowly, and a tall woman stepped out. She moved with the kind of calm, deliberate energy that told me she was used to being in control of every situation she walked into. She wore a navy blue blazer over a crisp white shirt, and a county badge gleamed on her belt. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her expression was completely unreadable. She closed the car door behind her and walked toward us without hurrying. Every step was measured, precise, confident. When she reached my driveway, she stopped a few feet away from Patricia and looked at me first. "Good morning," she said. Her voice was smooth and professional. "You must be the new property owner." I nodded. "Yes, ma'am, I am Elena Castillo. I just moved in yesterday." She extended her hand and I shook it firmly. "I am Supervisory Agent Catherine Harrison, County Property Division. I received a report this morning about an unauthorized structure on restricted land." My stomach tightened slightly, but I kept my expression neutral. Restricted land. That phrase meant something very specific, and only a handful of people in this county would know why my name was connected to it. Patricia jumped in immediately, her voice high and desperate. "Yes, that is exactly what I reported. This woman moved in without any HOA approval. She has been building structures without permits. She is violating every regulation we have in this community." I tried to explain the rules to her, but she refuses to listen. Agent Harrison did not even glance at Patricia. Her eyes stayed fixed on me, calm and assessing. She let Patricia finish her rant without interrupting. Then she turned to face her with an expression so cold it could have frozen water. "Mrs. Langford," she said slowly, "this property is located outside the HOA boundary. I verified that myself before driving here today." Patricia blinked rapidly. "No, that cannot be right. I submitted the maps to your office personally. I provided all the documentation proving that this land falls within our jurisdiction." Agent Harrison pulled a tablet from her bag and tapped the screen a few times. She turned it around so Patricia could see. "These are the official county maps," she said. "Your HOA boundary ends 3 lots before this property. You have no authority here. You never had authority here. And the documents you submitted to my office last month were forged." Patricia's face twisted into an expression I can only describe as panic denial. "Forged? No, that is impossible. I got those maps from the original HOA files. They were approved by the previous board." Agent Harrison cut her off. "The previous board never approved any boundary expansion. I contacted them directly. They confirmed that you submitted those documents without their knowledge or authorization. You altered official county maps to include properties that were never part of your jurisdiction, and that Mrs. Langford is a felony." Patricia stumbled backward like she had been physically struck. Her clipboard fell from her hands and clattered against the pavement. Papers scattered across my driveway, but she did not move to pick them up. "This is a mistake," she stammered. "I was just trying to protect the neighborhood. I was trying to maintain property values. I was doing my job." No, Agent Harrison said firmly. You were impersonating a legal authority. You were harassing homeowners. You were filing false complaints and forging official documents. I warned you about this 6 months ago. I told you that if you continued this behavior there would be serious consequences. You ignored that warning. Patricia shook her head violently. I did not ignore anything. I was following the rules. I was doing what any responsible HOA president would do. Agent Harrison turned to me, and her expression softened just slightly. Ms. Castillo, I apologize for this situation. Your property file is completely in order. In fact, your land is covered by a federal protection clause, which means no homeowners association, no private organization, and no individual can interfere with your residency or any construction you choose to undertake. It is one of the most thoroughly documented properties in this county. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, but I kept my composure. Thank you, I said. I appreciate you taking the time to verify everything. She nodded. I also want you to know that we have been building a case against Mrs. Langford for some time. Your situation today provides additional evidence that will be very helpful. I glanced at Patricia, who was now visibly trembling. Her carefully constructed world of fake authority and intimidation was crumbling around her, and she had no idea how to stop it. Agent Harrison continued. Mrs. Langford, you are hereby notified that formal charges will be filed against you for document forgery, impersonation of legal authority, harassment of private citizens, and filing false reports with county officials. You will receive official notification within 72 hours. I strongly suggest you retain legal counsel. Patricia's eyes went wide with panic. You cannot do this to me, she shrieked. I am the HOA president. I have rights. I have authority. You cannot just arrest me for doing my job. No one is arresting you today, Agent Harrison said calmly. But if you continue to harass Ms. Castillo or any other homeowner in this area, you will be taken into custody immediately. Do you understand? Patricia opened her mouth to argue, but something in Agent Harrison's expression stopped her. She closed her mouth, swallowed hard, and nodded once. I understand, she whispered. Good, Agent Harrison replied. Now I suggest you leave this property and return to your own home, and I suggest you stay there until you hear from my office. Patricia did not need to be told twice. She turned and walked away from my driveway, moving faster than I had ever seen her move before. She did not pick up her scattered papers. She did not look back. She just kept walking until she disappeared around the corner at the end of the street. Agent Harrison watched her go, then turned back to me. Ms. Castillo, I have to ask you something. Do you know why your property is flagged in our system? I took a deep breath. Yes, I said, I do, because I am the one who approved the protection clause. Agent Harrison's eyebrows rose slightly. I thought that might be the case. Your name appeared in the federal records as the approving officer. I wanted to verify it in person before making any assumptions. I nodded. I worked for the Federal Land Protection Division for 15 years. I specialized in cases involving disputed properties and protected lands. This particular parcel came across my desk about 5 years ago. I reviewed the documentation, approved the protection clause, and filed all the necessary paperwork. I had no idea at the time that I would eventually buy the property myself. Agent Harrison smiled slightly. That explains why your file is so thorough. Most property owners struggle to provide even basic documentation. Yours is practically a textbook example of proper land ownership records. I allowed myself a small smile in return. Old habits, I said. She glanced down at the scattered papers still lying on my driveway. The fake eviction notice Patricia had slapped on my door was among them. Would you mind if I collected these as evidence, she asked. Not at all, I replied. Take whatever you need. She pulled on a pair of latex gloves and carefully gathered the papers, placing them in a clear plastic bag. This should be more than enough to support the charges, she said. Combined with your video footage and the testimony of the neighbors who were watching, this should be an open and shut case. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders that I had not even realized I was carrying. For the first time since Patricia started banging on my door, I felt like I could actually breathe. Thank you, I said. I honestly was not sure how this was going to play out when she first showed up. Agent Harrison straightened up and looked at me with an expression of genuine respect. Ms. Castillo, you handled yourself extremely well. Most people in your situation would have panicked or become confrontational. You stayed calm, documented everything, and knew exactly what your rights were. That is impressive. I shrugged slightly. I have dealt with difficult people before, she nodded. I can tell. She pulled a business card from her pocket and handed it to me. If Mrs. Langford contacts you again, or if anyone else from the HOA tries to interfere with your property, please call me immediately. I will make sure it is handled. I took the card and slipped it into my pocket. I appreciate that. Agent Harrison walked back to her SUV and paused with her hand on the door. One more thing, she said. Welcome to the neighborhood. Despite the drama, I hope you enjoy living here. I smiled. Thank you, I think I will. She climbed into the SUV and drove away, leaving me standing alone on my driveway. The neighbors who had been watching slowly retreated back into their homes. The street fell quiet. I stood there for a long moment, just breathing in the fresh morning air and looking at my little house. It was not much, just a modest 2-bedroom place with a small yard and a covered porch. But it was mine, completely and legally mine, and no one was going to take it from me. Over the next few weeks, life settled into a peaceful routine. I finished unpacking my boxes, arranged my furniture, and started making the house feel like a home. The neighbors who had witnessed Patricia's meltdown began introducing themselves one by one. Most of them were friendly and apologetic. They told me stories about Patricia's reign of terror over the past several years. She had targeted multiple homeowners with similar tactics: fake violations, fraudulent notices, threatening letters. Most people had simply paid her arbitrary fines or made the changes she demanded because they did not want to deal with the confrontation. A few had even moved away, entirely unable to cope with the constant harassment. But I was not like most people. And now that Patricia had been exposed, the entire neighborhood seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief. 3 weeks after the incident, I received a phone call from Agent Harrison. She informed me that formal charges had been filed against Patricia Langford. The list was extensive: forgery, fraud, harassment, filing false police reports, impersonating a government official. Each charge carried significant penalties, and the county prosecutor was treating the case as a priority. Patricia had apparently tried to flee the county when she received the official notification, but she was stopped at a traffic checkpoint and taken into custody. Her bail was set at $50,000, and she was required to surrender her passport and remain within state lines pending trial. I felt a complicated mix of emotions when I heard the news. Part of me was relieved that justice was being served. Part of me felt a strange sadness for Patricia, because somewhere along the way she had become so consumed by her need for control that she had destroyed her own life. But mostly I felt grateful. Grateful that I had the knowledge and resources to stand up to her. Grateful that the county took the situation seriously. And grateful that I could finally enjoy my new home in peace. The trial took place 4 months later. I was called as a witness, and I testified about everything that had happened on that first morning. The prosecutor played the video footage from my truck camera, and the jury watched Patricia's entire performance from start to finish. Her attorney tried to argue that she was simply a concerned citizen who had made some procedural mistakes, but the evidence was overwhelming. The forged documents, the fake notices, the pattern of harassment spanning multiple years and multiple victims. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. They found Patricia guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced her to 2 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of probation. She was also ordered to pay restitution to every homeowner she had harassed, and she was permanently banned from holding any position of authority in any homeowners association anywhere in the state. When the verdict was announced, Patricia broke down in tears. She screamed that she had been set up, that the system was rigged against her, that she was the real victim. But no one believed her anymore. The truth had finally caught up with her. After the trial, I went back to my quiet life on my quiet street. The neighborhood had changed dramatically in the months since Patricia's arrest. People smiled more. They waved when they saw each other. They had block parties and cookouts and actually seemed to enjoy living there. The HOA itself was completely restructured. A new board was elected with strict oversight requirements and transparent voting procedures. The new president was a retired school teacher named Margaret, who made it her personal mission to rebuild trust with every homeowner in the community. She even reached out to me personally to apologize for everything Patricia had done, even though my property was not technically part of the HOA. I accepted her apology and we became good friends. Sometimes I still think about that first morning. The banging on my door, Patricia's screaming voice, the fake notice she tried to use to force me out of my own home. It feels like a lifetime ago now, but it taught me something important. Bullies rely on their victims staying silent. They count on people being too afraid or too uninformed to fight back. They build their power on the assumption that no one will ever challenge them. But when you stand your ground, when you know your rights, when you refuse to be intimidated, their power disappears. Patricia thought she could scare me away with a loud voice and a fake piece of paper. She had no idea that I had spent my entire career dealing with people just like her. And she had no idea that her attempts to bully me would be the thing that finally brought her down. If you are watching this and you have ever dealt with someone like Patricia, I want you to know that you are not alone. There are people who will help you. There are laws that protect you. And there is always hope, even when the situation seems impossible. Never let anyone make you feel like you do not have the right to exist in your own space. Never let anyone use fake authority to control your life, and never be afraid to stand up for yourself, because sometimes that is the only thing standing between you and the bully who thinks they own the world. Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to this channel and share it with someone who needs to hear it. We post stories like this every day, and every single one is about ordinary people finding the courage to fight back against injustice. Until next time, stay strong, stay informed, and remember that karma always finds a way. The months following Patricia's conviction brought changes I never expected. News of her downfall spread far beyond our little neighborhood. Local newspapers picked up the story, and it even made it to a few regional television stations. The headline that ran most often was HOA president jailed after years of harassment, and the story detailed not just my experience, but the experiences of dozens of other homeowners who finally felt safe enough to come forward. One by one, they shared their stories. A young couple who had been fined $3,000 for planting flowers that Patricia deemed inappropriate. An elderly man who had been threatened with legal action because his mailbox was painted the wrong shade of blue. A single mother who had been harassed for months because her children's bicycles were visible from the street. Each story was more outrageous than the last, and each one painted a clearer picture of just how deep Patricia's abuse of power had gone. The county launched a full investigation into the HOA's financial records, and what they found was staggering. Patricia had been collecting fines for violations that did not exist and pocketing the money herself. Over 5 years, she had stolen more than $80,000 from the homeowners she claimed to be protecting. The money had gone toward luxury vacations, designer clothes, and an extensive collection of expensive handbags that were found in her home during the investigation. When this information became public, the outrage was immediate. Homeowners who had paid those fraudulent fines demanded their money back. Lawyers began filing civil suits on behalf of the victims, and the state attorney general announced that additional charges would be filed for embezzlement and theft. Patricia's 2-year sentence was extended to 7 years. She would not be eligible for parole until she had served at least 5. I watched all of this unfold from the comfort of my front porch, sipping coffee and feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. Not because I enjoyed seeing someone suffer, but because I knew that every person Patricia had bullied over the years was finally getting the justice they deserved. I received letters from some of them, handwritten notes thanking me for standing up when no one else would. Emails from people I had never met telling me that my story had inspired them to fight back against their own bullies. One woman drove 3 hours just to shake my hand and tell me that watching Patricia get arrested had been the happiest moment of her life. It was overwhelming at times. I had never sought attention or recognition. I had simply refused to be pushed around in my own home, but somehow that simple act of defiance had sparked a movement. Other HOA victims across the country started sharing their own stories. Support groups formed. Advocacy organizations launched campaigns for stricter oversight of homeowners associations. State legislators began drafting bills to limit the power of HOA boards and protect homeowners from abuse. And at the center of it all was one simple truth: bullies only have power when their victims stay silent. The moment someone stands up, the illusion of control begins to crumble. Patricia learned that lesson the hard way, and I hope everyone watching this video learns it too. You do not have to accept mistreatment. You do not have to tolerate harassment. You do not have to live in fear of people who use fake authority to control your life. There are resources available, there are laws that protect you, and there are people who will stand beside you when you decide to fight back. If you are dealing with a situation like this, please do not suffer in silence. Document everything. Know your rights. Reach out to local authorities and advocacy groups. And most importantly, remember that you are not alone. My life has changed dramatically since that first morning in my new house. What started as a nightmare became a turning point. I found my voice. I found my community. And I found a purpose that I never knew I was searching for. I now volunteer with organizations that help homeowners navigate disputes with overbearing HOAs. I speak at community meetings and legal seminars, sharing my story and teaching people how to protect themselves. I have testified before state legislative committees advocating for stronger protections and harsher penalties for those who abuse their positions of power. It is not the retirement I originally planned, but it is infinitely more rewarding. Every time I help someone escape a situation like mine, I feel that same satisfaction I felt watching Patricia being led away in handcuffs. Every success story reminds me why I chose to fight back instead of walking away. As for my little house on the quiet street, it has become everything I hoped it would be: a sanctuary, a place of peace, a home where I can finally rest after years of work and stress and constant travel. My neighbors have become like family. We look out for each other. We share meals and stories and laughter, and we all know that we are stronger together than we ever were alone. The HOA itself is unrecognizable from what it was under Patricia's rule. The new board operates with complete transparency. Every meeting is open to all homeowners. Every decision is voted on fairly. And there is a strict zero-tolerance policy for harassment or intimidation of any kind. Margaret, the new president, has worked tirelessly to restore trust, and she has succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. She even invited me to join the board as an advisor, even though my property is technically outside the HOA boundary. I accepted, not because I want power or authority, but because I want to make sure that what happened under Patricia never happens again. I want to be a voice for fairness and reason. I want to help build a community where everyone feels welcome and respected. And I want to prove that HOAs do not have to be tools of oppression. They can be forces for good when they are led by people who genuinely care about their neighbors. So that is my story. From the terrifying first morning when a stranger tried to force me out of my home to the peaceful present where I sit on my porch watching the sunset and feeling grateful for everything I have. It was not an easy journey. There were moments when I doubted myself, moments when I wondered if fighting back was worth the stress and the conflict. But every time I look at my house and my neighbors and my community, I know that it was. Standing up to Patricia was the best decision I ever made. And I hope that by sharing my story I have inspired at least one person out there to make the same choice. If you have made it this far in the video, thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And thank you for being part of a community that values justice and fairness. Please subscribe to this channel if you have not already. We share stories like this every single day, and each one is a reminder that ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things when they refuse to be silenced. Leave a comment below and tell me about your own experiences. Have you ever dealt with an overbearing HOA? Have you ever had to stand up to a bully who thought they had power over you? I want to hear your stories because every story matters. And who knows, maybe your story will inspire someone else the same way mine inspired so many. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and remember that no matter how loud the bullies get, the truth is always louder. The sun is setting now and the sky is painted in shades of orange and pink. My neighborhood is quiet, the kind of quiet that feels earned. I can hear children laughing somewhere down the street and the distant sound of someone grilling dinner in their backyard. It smells like summer, like peace, like home. Patricia is still in prison serving out her sentence. I do not think about her often anymore. She was a chapter in my life that needed to be written, but that chapter is closed now. What matters is what comes next. And what comes next is good, really good. I finished my coffee and set the mug down on the porch railing. A neighbor walks by and waves, I wave back. We smile at each other like old friends because that is what we are now. Old friends, this community, this place. These people, they are my family. And nobody will ever take that away from me again. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. And remember, karma is real, justice exists, and bullies never win in the end. The morning after Patricia's sentencing, I woke up to silence. Not the tense silence of waiting for something bad to happen, but the comfortable silence of a new beginning. I made breakfast in my kitchen surrounded by the personal touches I had finally unpacked. Photos of my family. A collection of plants I had been nurturing for years. A handmade quilt my grandmother had given me before she passed. Every item was a reminder of the life I had built and the home I had fought to keep. As I sat at my kitchen table eating eggs and toast, I thought about all the people who had reached out to me since the trial ended. The emails and letters continued to pour in. Some were from people in my own state sharing similar experiences with aggressive HOAs. Others came from across the country, even from other countries. The common thread in all of them was hope. My story had given people permission to believe that change was possible. One email in particular stood out to me. It was from a woman named Diane, who lived in a small town in Texas. She had been fighting her HOA for 3 years over a fence she had built to protect her disabled son from wandering into the street. The HOA had ordered her to remove it, claiming it violated aesthetic guidelines. She had complied with every modification request they made, but nothing was ever good enough. She had spent thousands of dollars in legal fees and was on the verge of bankruptcy. After seeing my story on the news, she had hired a new attorney who specialized in HOA disputes. Within 2 months, they had won their case, and the HOA was ordered to pay all her legal fees plus damages. She wrote to thank me for giving her the courage to keep fighting when she was ready to give up. I printed that email and hung it on my refrigerator. It is still there today. Stories like Diane's remind me why I decided to go public with my experience. It would have been easy to stay quiet, to celebrate my victory privately and move on with my life, but I knew that silence would only help people like Patricia continue their abuse unchecked. By speaking out, I hope to create a ripple effect that would reach people I would never meet and give them the strength to stand up for themselves. That ripple effect has exceeded every expectation I had. The legislation I advocated for passed 6 months after Patricia's sentencing. It established new requirements for HOA transparency, including mandatory public financial audits, elected oversight committees, and strict penalties for board members who abuse their power. Similar laws have since been proposed in 12 other states. The national conversation about HOA reform has grown louder and more urgent than ever before. I still speak at conferences and community events whenever I can. Sometimes the audiences are small, just a handful of concerned homeowners looking for guidance. Other times they are large, hundreds of people packed into auditoriums hungry for information and inspiration. Regardless of the size, I always tell the same story. The story of a woman who bought a house and refused to let a bully drive her out of it. Every time I tell that story, someone in the audience approaches me afterward with tears in their eyes. They share their own experiences. They ask for advice. They thank me for making them feel less alone. Those conversations are the most rewarding part of this entire journey. They remind me that what happened to me was not just about me. It was about everyone who has ever been victimized by someone who abused their position of authority. My relationship with Agent Catherine Harrison has also deepened over the past year. She has become a trusted friend and ally in the ongoing fight against HOA abuse. Together, we have developed training programs for county officials to help them identify and respond to fraudulent HOA complaints more effectively. We have also created resources for homeowners explaining their rights and providing step-by-step guidance for documenting and reporting abuse. Catherine told me recently that the number of fraudulent HOA complaints her office receives has dropped by 60% since Patricia's case made national news. She credits the publicity with making potential abusers think twice before trying similar tactics. That statistic alone makes everything I went through worthwhile. Of course, not every day is easy. There are moments when the weight of my new role feels heavy, when the emails pile up faster than I can respond, when the stories I hear are so heartbreaking that I have to step away and remind myself that I cannot save everyone. But then I look around at my home and my community, and I remember why I started this journey in the first place. Because everyone deserves to feel safe in their own home. Because no one should have to live in fear of a neighbor who has decided to weaponize the rules. Because the system can work when good people refuse to let it be corrupted by bad ones. Patricia is scheduled for a parole hearing next year. I have been asked to submit a victim impact statement, and I am still deciding what to say. Part of me wants to tell her about all the lives she damaged, all the families she tore apart, all the stress and fear and financial hardship she caused with her years of unchecked abuse. But another part of me wants to tell her that I hope she has learned from this experience, that I hope she finds a way to become a better person, that even after everything she did, I do not wish her harm. I just wish she had made different choices. I suppose that is the complicated reality of seeking justice. It is rarely as satisfying as we imagine it will be. There is no moment of perfect closure where everything feels resolved and we can move on without looking back. There are just moments of progress, small victories that add up over time, the knowledge that we did what we could with the options we had. That is enough for me, more than enough actually. As I finish writing this, I am sitting on my front porch watching the sun set over my neighborhood, the same neighborhood that felt so hostile on that first terrifying morning. Now it feels like home in every sense of the word. My neighbors are outside enjoying the evening. Children are playing in yards. Someone is walking a dog. Someone else is watering flowers. It is ordinary, peaceful, exactly what I always wanted. Tomorrow I will wake up and start another day. There will be emails to answer and meetings to attend and stories to hear. There will be moments of frustration and moments of joy. There will be challenges I cannot yet imagine and victories I cannot yet predict. But through it all I will remember the lesson that Patricia taught me without meaning to. The lesson that changed my life and continues to guide everything I do. We are all stronger than we think we are. And when we refuse to back down, the bullies have no power at all. Thank you for reading my story. Thank you for being part of this community. And thank you for believing as I do that justice is worth fighting for. Now I am going to pour myself another cup of coffee and watch the stars come out, because life is too short to spend it worrying about people who tried to make us small. We are not small. We never were and we never will be. The end of my story is really just the beginning of a life lived without fear. A life filled with purpose and connection and hope. A life that was almost stolen from me by a woman with a clipboard and a loud voice. But she did not win, and neither will anyone else who tries to take what is rightfully ours. Remember that the next time someone tries to push you around, remember that you have power even when you feel powerless. Remember that your voice matters even when they try to silence it. And most importantly, remember that you are not alone. None of us are. We are all in this together, and together we are unstoppable. Subscribe to this channel for more stories like this one. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And never ever forget that karma is real and bullies always get what they deserve in the end. Until next time, stay strong, stay brave, and stay true to yourself. This is Elena signing off. Good night, everyone.